Hey there, I'm Lainey Lipsky, parenting coach and master teacher. Parenting is hard. I totally get it, and I'm here to make it easier for you. Especially if you had a tough childhood or you've got a tough child now, I've got your back. So take a deep breath, relax, and check out this clip from my coaching group this week. And remember to hit like and subscribe if you like my vibe. Let's get started. So here are the questions for today. As my girls are growing, I want them to know the importance of being healthy. My 4-year-old is getting a bit of a tummy, and as she grows, eats a lot, sometimes more than me. I want to be very cautious about how I talk about food and body image with them. How do I tell them they need to eat certain portions, whether to do that or whether that means eating more or less of something without it being damaging? Ooh, going for the jugular here. That's a really, really good question, especially, I was going to say especially with little girls, but it's important with little boys too as they're growing up. So, first of all, um, unless the doctor is saying, your child is overweight and we need to look at this, I would say it's important for us as parents to rest in the knowledge that we're feeding our kids healthy food if we are, and we are giving them plenty of exercise if you are. Enough rest. Sorry, that's a third thing would be enough rest. Because if kids are overtired, they tend to not want to move as much. And then as they get older, they'll crave unhealthier foods. But if you know that you're generally, and this is as habits, this isn't like every single meal, every single snack, every single day. We don't have to be crazy about it. But if the family habit is to eat healthy food, to um, exercise, and for kids, that means play. That doesn't mean putting them on a treadmill, you guys, okay? This is like they should be outside, they should be playing. And if they're getting enough sleep, then their bodies are going to be regulating themselves. Okay. And I wouldn't worry, honestly, for a 4-year old about a tummy coming into play. I know that this triggers a lot, especially for women, if you have any kind of body issues, like who doesn't, right? Or if you had any kind of eating disorder, any kind of body dysmorphia, anything like that, this can be very triggering for moms, especially, also for dads. But your kids, first of all, if you don't already know this, when they're about to grow, they usually plump up a little bit. They're usually eating more in anticipation of their bodies growing. They just do that naturally. So, like we joke with my son, when he's about to grow, his face gets really chubby, and then he spurts and he grows, and it all, kind of works itself out. And maybe that's where your daughter shows that she's getting ready to grow, is that her tummy gets kind of big. All right. There's so much here. And it's hard for me to know exactly what's triggering about it for you. Um, so I'm going to keep this really simple. Again, those three things: if they're eating generally healthy food, they are getting enough playtime, active playtime, and they are resting enough. You're in good shape already. Sorry about the pun. When it comes to portions, I think that there are some general rules of thumb that you can have in your family. I'll share with you some things that I do with my family that allow you to be mindful eaters without being neurotic eaters. And what you don't want to do is tip them into being somebody who is, counting calories if they don't have to, or looking at too much portion control if they don't have to. So one thing that you can do in your family, which worked well for my family, is to not let kids, and model this yourself, of course, to not eat out of a bag and to not know how much you're eating. To just generally take a portion of something, and you yourself can look at what a portion is on the back of the bag or the box if you want to. 4 years old is way too young for them to be looking at those portions or the serving sizes, right? But you can look at that, or you can just take a handful of whatever it is, raisins, nuts, whatever you're feeding, and put it into a bowl and have that be like, if you want more, you can have more, but not to just mindlessly be eating out of a bag, because some things that they're eating are just going to be so delicious, they're just going to keep eating and they're not going to have a sense that it's done unless they hit the bottom of the bag as opposed to seeing that it's done in the bowl and waiting a couple of minutes, letting your body, letting your mind catch up to your body. I think it takes 10, I've heard anywhere between 10 and 20 minutes for the brain to register that it has had enough food. So that's why you keep gobbling when you're hungry, you tend to overeat, and then your stomach hurts because it's like finally your brain has caught up to the amount of food that you've eaten, which is kind of a faulty design if you ask me. But anyway, that's why that happens. So slow it down and just have them pay attention to their body and just say, are you still hungry, or are you eating it just because, well, 4 is young to ask that question. Just, are you still hungry? If she's still hungry, eat. And if she's not still hungry, okay, let's take a break. But to not make food a big deal and to not limit it in any way at 4 is important, because otherwise you're potentially setting up a damaging relationship with food. The other big thing that I want to point out is to never use food as a reward or punishment. And if you've already been doing that, don't beat yourself up for it. Just stop doing it. It's not like if you are, if you jump into the swimming pool, for a kid who's afraid of jumping in the swimming pool, then we'll get ice cream later, right? Don't use it as a bribe or a reward or a punishment. If you don't do your homework, you're not going to get ice cream later. I know I keep using ice cream, but whatever, right? You're not going to get dessert if you don't. Da, da, da. It's different to say, listen, if you are not eating your food for dinner, we're not going to have dessert. um, that's different. That's not a reward. That's just part of the meal. One way around that is to have the dessert be on the plate as part of dinner, so it's not tied to it in any special weird way. And for kids who are young and into it, fruit is a perfectly fine dessert. Like, it's totally fine. It's sweet, it's delicious, and that can be on their plate. Okay. Um, the way that you talk about body image with them, just keep talking about how strong she is, how capable she is. I know she sees you working out, right? Let your kids see you exercise, let your kids see you eating, let your kids see you enjoying food, let your kids see you not always finish the food on your plate, maybe, and say, I'm full, I'm done eating. And these are just very casual things, but you don't even have to say those things out loud. Like, I'm done eating, announcing it. I would encourage you, especially if this is triggering at all for you, and this would be a bigger conversation, but if it's at all triggering for you, to be very low key about it, very low key. But let yourself um, relax a little bit, knowing that you're offering good snacks and you're offering good food, and she's getting the basics covered. Okay. Um, the other important thing I would say about body image is that how your kids see you look at yourself in the mirror is really important. Like, if you are constantly telling your daughter, for example, oh, you're so beautiful, we love you, no matter what size you are, it's fine, no matter, what color hair you have is fine. We tell our kids all the time, people come in different sizes and different shapes. But if they see us getting mad at ourselves in the mirror, or going up and, like, plucking out the gray hair as it comes in, right? Or saying, like, oh, I can't believe I have another wrinkle here, or right? We're not matching what we're telling them with what we're actually modeling. So just make sure that you're showing yourself the same love and the same messages that that you're telling her, so that she's not having that cognitive dissonance that we talked about a little earlier. Um, right? So that she's like, oh, my mom says that, my body is strong and my body is great, no matter what size, what shape it is. And she loves her body too, right? So it should be consistent. How you treat yourself and how you talk to your daughter and want her to talk to herself is um, should be consistent. Okay. This is a complex thing, and I also feel the responsibility to give you some red flag possibilities here. If you notice that your little one suddenly is, really focusing in on a certain part of their body, like, oh, my thighs are very big, or my nose is too big, or they're really hyper focused on one part of their body, that would be something that would be a red flag to pay attention to, that they're not really having a general sense of their body. And um, that's something that you should definitely pay attention to. And if they suddenly also decide, I'm a vegetarian, or I'm vegan, or I'm only eating, this kind of food or that kind of food, it's a sudden change, that's something to pay attention to also. Those are a couple of red flags that child has tipped into a sort of anxious place about food and their bodies. Okay. Be mindful about the tone in which you talk about food. And I know that sometimes one child, who's more prone to, let's just say, go for the cookies, and no, nothing's to say you have to have cookies in your house, but if they're the ones who are going for the cookies, if you have cookies in your house, um, and you have to repeat yourself to them, your other child is also getting that message repeatedly, and your other child may not need the message as intensely. So that could create some anxiety for that second child as well. So keep it low key. 4 years old is not a time to worry unless your child is one of those kids who's like only eating. I have this friend who he swears that the only thing he had to eat until he was about 6 years old was chocolate milk. And his mom never did anything about it. It's probably not a good idea to intervene if your child is only having one type of food or really limited diet. But if you're covering those basics with play, active play, enough sleep, and lots of healthy choices for food, then at 4 years old, I just would keep things as low key as possible. I can't tell you not to worry about it because it's your kid and you're seeing things, I'm sure, but just be mindful about what it is triggering for you versus what they're actually doing. Okay. And stay consistent. Stay consistent with what you're telling yourself and what you're telling her and how you're treating yourself. That's going to be the modeling is going to be the most important thing. I really hope this video was helpful to you. Feel free to share it and use the comments to ask a question or to request a topic for the future. We've got links below for free support with things like discipline, teaching your kids how to be more gritty, and how to be more patient with your kids, plus access to my free coaching group. So be sure to check those links out. And remember, we get one shot at parenthood. Our kids only get one shot at their childhood, so let's make it count. Click like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.